Today, I want to talk about safety and protection. I want to talk about exercising your Second Amendment right, the right to bear arms. And this is a subject that I want to talk about because this is a subject that has been going on in the media for some time. And it's in reference to the law that's going to be passed on in Chicago January 1st, 2023, that some people are calling the purge law. Everyone is in a stir saying, oh, it's going to be a purge. We need to get ready. We need to get ready. So I just want to talk about it a little bit, just to get into the 400-page law that's going to be passed in 2023. There's no way that we can go over 400 pages, but we can get into it just a little bit just to see what it really is about. So that law that's going to be passed in Chicago 2023, January, it's called the Safety Act, which eliminates cash bail. And like I said before, a lot of people are calling this the purge bill. It's been going on in the media stating that it will allow certain individuals to get off even if they commit violent crimes. So if you've seen a purge, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't, then I'm gonna break it down just a little bit. So the Purge movie was about that. That stated that all crime was illegal for like 12 to 24 hours. That you could do anything you wanted to do, whether it was murder, rape, or anything, for 12 hours, or I think it was 24 hours, one or the other, I'm not sure. So I want to break this down to my understanding. And I want to get you guys' opinion on this to see what you guys think. So I want to start with this scripture of the Bible, Luke 31 through 38. And it states, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift you all as wheat. But I've prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail you. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. But he replied, Lord, I am ready to go with you to prison and to death. Jesus answered, I tell you, Peter, before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times that you know me. Then Jesus asked him, when I sent you without purse, bag, or sandals, did you lack anything? Nothing, they answered. He said to them, but now, if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. I'm going to repeat that. And he said to them, but now, if you have a purse, take it, and also a bag. And if you don't have a sword, sell your cloak and buy one. It is written, he was numbered with the transgressors. And I tell you that this must be fulfilled in me. Yes, what is written about me is reaching its fulfillment. The disciples said, see, Lord, here are 2 swords. That is enough, he replied. I want to focus on that part, the very significant part when Jesus told them, when I sent you out into the world before, you lack nothing. And they said, yeah, Lord, we lack nothing. But then he said something that was very, very key. He said, but now. So what changed? Jesus said, but now I tell you to go sell all that you have and go buy yourself a sword. So what's changed? So I want to focus on what he said. Jesus was really letting them know that it's about to get real. Times has changed, and it's about to be, you're about to be in an atmosphere that's about to be hot. If you can't stand the heat, stay out the kitchen. That's an old saying. That's what Jesus was telling them. So they said, we got 2 swords here. We're ready. We're ready for whatever's going to come. We're ready for whatever change that we're about to face. So it's time to protect yourself, is what he was saying. So even though Jesus said by your sword, we can correlate this to this time, our times that we're in now, as a sword pretty much being a gun. We all can argue that times have changed. but not for the better. So let's talk about this Safety Act being passed on in 2023 that eliminates the cash bail system. But before that, I want to talk about the other things that are in this bill before I get to the elimination of the cash bill. And like I stated earlier, the bill is about 400 pages long. So you know that there are a lot of information in this 400-page bill. And I'm just going to touch on a few things from what I've read and from what I've researched. And I think you guys should do the same. First, the Safety Act highlights, and this is the highlights for police use of force. So firstly, it states that new standards when officers use force. It requires officers to provide aid after use of force. I think the George Floyd case actually prompted this bill, or this part of the bill, of what we all seen that happened. So this bill is stating that it requires officers to provide aid after use of force. So I think people are fed up. Another highlight of this bill, of the Safety Act, is that it requires officers to intervene if other officers are using unauthorized or excessive force. I'm going to repeat that. This isn't a Safety Act. This isn't what people are saying, the purge bill. This is in that 400-page bill. So that highlight, it said it requires officers to intervene if other officers are using unauthorized or excessive force. Again, I think that this was prompt due to the George Floyd situation. We all saw the video where George Floyd was being detained by use of excessive force while other officers were watching. So this may have prompted this bill. Let's continue. The Safety Act also highlights the prohibition of police access to any military equipment, surplus program, or purchasing specific types of equipment. It requires publishing of any purchase, request, or receipt of equipment through any military purchasing program. That's interesting. Through the years, civilians in other parts of the country have been making complaints about law enforcement presence being made military, or having military style uniform than the usual law enforcement has. I remember in Washington, D.C. about a couple of months ago, watching the news, and residents were complaining about the Metro Transit police officers wearing military attire, and they were cautious and they were afraid because the presence wasn't like a usual police presence. It was like a military presence on the Metro with military style weapons like AR-15s, and people thought that something big was going on, when in reality it was just your typical law enforcement Metro Transit police officer. A lot of people make complaints because they didn't want to see that type of presence because it was uneasy to see that. I guess a lot of people were complaining that it brought them back to 9/11, and they weren't ready to see this presence of military style weapons just on a metro line. So it made people feel uneasy. So moving forward, the Safety Act also changes guidelines and requirements for body-worn cameras and who may access or review or delete footage. So this isn't a Safety Act. This isn't what people are calling, the media people are calling, the purge law. So the guidelines in that law, the Safety Act, states that body-worn cameras who may access, review, or delete footage. So those guidelines are changing for that. So I think a lot of police officers may not like that. They may or they may not. But if, say that you had a corrupt officer, it wouldn't benefit the officer if he was trying to get away with something that his body camera caught. So moving forward, we know in the past that there has been issues where police have turned off their body cam before engaging a suspect that could have provided pertinent information to a case. So we know that body cameras are very, very significant in relaying information. So that Safety Act changes guidelines to what police officers can do with that information. The act also expands officer training on topics including crisis intervention, de-escalating, use of force, high-risk traffic stops, implicit bias, racial and ethnic sensitivity, training, and emergency response. Now that is deep. I'm going to repeat that. The Safety Act, or the Purge Law, states that it states that it expands officers' training on topics including crisis intervention, de-escalation, use of force, high-risk traffic stops, implicit bias, racial and ethnic sensitivity training, and emergency response. That was a lot to take in right there. It seems like the act wants law enforcement to act and engage with people of color, black or brown, in a appropriate manner. Blacks or people of color, black or brown, have been appropriately in Chicago, have complained about police brutality, injustice, and racial discrimination by the police force. It seems like this act is taking a step to change that. Whether this is good or bad, you let me know. The act also mandates the use of force reporting to the FNI National Use of Force database. Also requires reporting of all deaths in police custody due to the use of force. I'm gonna say that again. This is deep. The Safety Act, or the Purge Law, also mandates the use of force reporting to the FBI National Use of Force database, and also requires reporting of all deaths in police custody due to use of force. Now here, this seems like it puts a lot on police to actually appropriately, while they engage in suspect in the public, to treat them right. Because if a suspect dies in police custody, there'll be a database with this police agency that they will have to report this. So this is something that may not be a good thing for police who may try to cover things up. So, is this the right thing to do based on the history of police injustice and brutality? Again, you let me know. I'm neutral on this. I have my personal feelings, but I want to know what you guys think. Let me know. There's so much included in this Safety Act. So I'm going to read through some of these mandates that's in the Safety Act, aka Purge Law, that some people are calling, or I'm not sure if the media coined that term, but I'm going to read through some things so you guys get a better interpretation of what's in this act, and you guys can make your own opinion, or better yet, formulate your own opinion. So now, I'm going to talk about complaints and misconduct that's in the 400-page Safety Act, aka Purge Law. So in the area of complaints and misconduct, the act creates statewide decertification process for officers. It allows the Attorney General to investigate initial civil lawsuits and enforce settlements against police agencies that have a pattern of depriving individuals of their rights. I'm going to repeat that because this is very significant. This is paramount information. So the act, or the aka Purge Law, allows the Attorney General to investigate initial civil lawsuits and enforce settlements against police agencies that have a pattern of depriving individuals of their rights. The act says it creates stricter body camera regulations and a Class 3 felony for clear and willful attempts to obstruct justice. So any officer that tries to obstruct justice, it would be considered a Class 3 felony. It also allows for investigation of anonymous complaints against officers. Wow. I'm going to repeat that. It allows an investigation of anonymous complaints against officers. It bans the destruction of police misconduct records. Wow. I'm going to say that again. This is very interesting, guys. It bans the destruction of police misconduct records. It allows complaint filings against police officers without sworn affidavits or other legal documentation. It removes the requirements that officers under the investigation must be informed of complaints, names, or of the officers in charge of the investigation. I'm going to say that again. It removes the requirements that officers under investigation must be informed of complaints, names, or the officer in the charge of the investigation. Wow. It prohibits local governments from retaliating against employees who report improper government actions. It expands notification of police misconduct to the Illinois State Training and Standards Board. It makes data on misconduct more accessible. It requires a publicly available database for any police misconduct that results in a decertification. Now, let me ask you something, guys. Do you think that the reason why a lot of law enforcement officers are complaining about this bill, calling it AKA purge bill, because a lot of these statutes are focused on police misconduct? Because this is something that they don't talk about in the media. So let me know what you guys think. I had to dig this information up to find out for myself. So let me know, guys. But I'm going to continue. The Safety Act also changes Illinois State Police Merit Board composition and reporting to the board. It creates Illinois Law Enforcement Certification Review Panel. It enhances automatic and discriminatory termination of officers. It changes procedures for automatic and discretionary decertification of officers. It includes provisions for immediate suspension, requires verification of training and employment information. Wow. It requires verification of training and employment verification. Requires additional sheriff qualifications. Now, I'm going to move over to other provisions. So the Act, aka Purge Law, also adds reporting of officers dispatched to mental health crisis or incidents. Think about that, guys. Listen what this says. It said it adds reporting of officer dispatched to mental health crisis or incidents. Many times we've seen in the news, guys, where officers were dispatched to a mental health situation and the officers maybe negligently or indirectly or directly killed that suspect, not knowing that they had a mental health issue. So this Safety Act, aka Purge Bill, states that reporting officer to dispatch will have to let them know, or I'm gonna read it verbatim, said as reporting of officer dispatch to mental health crisis or incidents. So I guess that means that they will have to report that this is a mental health issue. It also says that make residency requirements a subject of collective bargaining cities with population over 100,000. Requires officers to issue a citation rather than arrest for certain low-level offenses. So this would stop a lot of issues also. So instead of the officers depending on the crime, whether you lauded or you jaywalked, instead of also being able to arrest you or discriminate against you maybe because of your color, the law states, aka Purge Law, states that the only officer can only give you a citation and not arrest you. It also states that it provides for confidential mental health screening and counseling for officers. Now this is big, guys. At one point in time in my life, I wanted to become a police officer. I'm glad that I didn't, because that just wasn't the path that God had for me. But some of these officers, guys, I know that you've dealt with it, that you've been pulled over, and a lot of these officers feel like they have a stick in their rectum. And you ask yourself, how did these officers get the job? Like, tell me, guys, tell the truth. Have you guys said that? How did they get the job? So here in this Safety Act, aka Purge Law, it says that It provides for confidential mental health screening and counseling for officers. Let's just be honest, we all human, and some officers may have mental issues. So it says that they would have to provide confidential mental health screening and counseling for officers, which I feel like is needed. Let me know what you think, guys. It also states that it expands crime statistics reporting to monthly. It provides people in custody with up to 3 phone calls within 3 hours. We all know that sometimes people may get locked up for drunk driving just to make your life hard. Sometimes officers may neglect you over a phone call just to be an ass. So, you know, it's just, you let me know what you think about this. It allows for medical treatment for people in custody without unreasonable delay. We could just go back to the Freddie Gray case in Baltimore where he was drove in a paddy wagon, his spine was severed. We can go back to the FBG Duck case. He was a rapper. I didn't know too much about him, but they got video of him getting shot downtown Chicago where this bill is being passed. I mean, he was a fighter, got shot Lord knows how many times, and you can see about 10 officers just watching him and not helping him, not rendering aid or anything. And the hospital was, from what they say, was only about 5 minutes away. So they say if he would have got to the hospital or if the officers would have provided aid, he could have survived. So this Safety Act, aka Purge Law, says it allows for medical treatment for people in custody without unreasonable delay. And it also states it amends police pre-arrest diversion deflection programs to allow for collaboration with other first responders and community partners. Like I said, this act is about 400 pages long. Can't get too deep into it, but I want to talk about why they are calling this the Purge Law. They're not calling it the Purge Law because of what I just stated to you guys. They're calling it the Purge Law because of the pretrial highlights. So some of the pretrial highlights from what I'm about to state right here is why they are calling it the Purge Law, because it eliminates cash bail. So here are some of the highlights. The Safety Act, or aka Purge Law, abolishes cash bail. When you listen to the media, you listen to politicians, when you listen to attorneys, this is the only thing that they talk about is this abolish of cash bail. This is deep. So it abolishes cash bail. The act prevents the results of a risk assessment for being the sole basis for the detention decision and informs the accused person of the tool. Again, it prevents the results of a risk assessment from being the sole basis for a detention decision and informs the accused person of the tool. It establishes a pretrial practice data oversight board to oversee data collection and analysis. It establishes the domestic violence pretrial practices working group, adds notification of pretrial hearing to crime victims, changes the offense class for violation of conditions of pretrial release, changes pretrial release procedures including release on own recognizance, warrant, alternatives, and conditions of release including electric monitoring and home confinement revocation, modification, and sanctions. May revoke pretrial release under certain circumstances. So guys, like I said, the reason why they are calling this Safety Act, aka the Purge Law, is because of that one pretrial highlight of the abolishment of the cash bail. So let's talk about the cash bail. So initially, the cash bail system was a guarantee that a defendant would return for trial or a hearing. The money was returned once the defendant made all necessary appearances So the bail would not be forfeited to the government. So in clearer terms, if someone was apprehended and put into custody, he would have a bail. If he couldn't afford that bail, whether he stole a piece of candy or whether he stole a piece of paper, he would remain in custody. And if he did bail out, that bail money that he or she paid would be returned to that individual once they completed all the necessary pre-trial hearings or appearances. So I guess because we live in a capitalistic society, money was a way to, or money is a way, because this law is only applying to Chicago. Money is a way to keep people, I guess, connected, or to get them to do what you want them to do. And this is why a lot of people agree with the cash bail, and this is the reason why a lot of people disagree with the cash bail. So let's just get to why some people don't like the cash bail system. So a lot of people didn't like the cash bail system because it was a way to use money to tie people up in trial, preferably people of color, black and brown. I mean, a lot of people don't think the criminal justice system is fair anyway. They look at the cash bail system as being an injustice way that preys on black people, people of color, to keep people detained because they lack money. So pretty much what people were saying, if you were poor, you couldn't bail yourself out. But if you were rich, regardless of what you did, you could have committed a murder. And if you had money, if you was rich, you would be able to get out of jail. You would be able to think clearly. You'd be able to have the best defense because you wouldn't be cramped up in that jail. So a lot of people think that the cash bail system was racist. I mean, everyone has their own opinion. So a lot of people of color are happy that this cash bail is being abolished. A lot of people aren't. So like I said, it's dealing with the rich and poor. If you were poor, you couldn't bail yourself out. If you were rich, you can bail yourself out. People feel like the system was biased. I remember watching the news, and there was a young lady who, I think she had maybe 2 or 3 kids, and she got caught stealing diapers for a baby, and she was detained for about maybe 7 months because she couldn't come up with the bail, which was only like a couple of $100s. So this is another reason why people think that the cash bail system is racist, and it marginalizes and black and brown people, and it disproportionately treats people of color wrongfully. So guys, let me know what you think. Now the law in 2023, which is right around the corner, which abolished the cash bail system, which people are calling the purge law. Some attorneys are saying that it will allow violent offenders such as robbery, armed robbery, they don't longer have to await trial, and they could just, while they're released after they committed such a heinous crime, that they can continue to do more crimes because they don't have a bail. Law enforcement are complaining about that. They don't feel comfortable with people who've done heinous crimes, that they're not able to be held by bail. So that's a frightening thing for law enforcement. After they lock someone up who may have committed a terrible crime, that they can get out and await trial. And sometimes, if you ever been to jail, trial can, you can continue to. Lawyers are savvy. A lot of lawyers are savvy. They can extend case for up to a year. So you may have someone committed a violent crime and they don't have to go to court for a year and a half, just because a savvy lawyer knows how to come up with things just to extend the case. So that's alarming to some law enforcement. I heard some politicians, some attorneys talk about that. It leaves it up to the discretion of the judge to determine if the suspect will be a flight risk, or if the suspect will indeed come back to court. But I say this: if it leaves it up to the judge's discretion, does that also leave an avenue up for bias or racial bias and discrimination if the judge can be the one to determine whether he's going to release this person or not? Let me know, guys, because a lot of people are saying that this too can lead up to discrimination if you just leave it up to the judge to make their opinion on whether this person is a flight risk or whether this person would appear back in court. So let me know, guys, what you think about the Safety Act, or the AKA purge law. Is it required for us, like Jesus said in the old times, for us to sell our purse, sell our belongings, and go get a sword, aka a gun? Is it that time, if you live in Chicago, to do that? If they did this in Chicago, would they do this around the world? Would they abolish the cash bail system where people can commit crimes, not necessarily, crimes, murder, but crimes that still molestation with anything? Should we sell our purse, like Jesus said, and go buy ourselves a gun and get prepared and get ready? Because people that commit crimes are not held. They're able to sit home or wherever they may live and commit crimes again. Not saying that this will happen. Let me know, guys, what you think. Because Jesus said, sell what you have, because it's about to get real, and buy yourself a sword. Let me know what you think.